Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of AgogeTV. I'm your host Phil Leonard.
And I'm your host Josh Summersgill.
Before we kick off today's podcast, we just have to thank our sponsor, xendurance.eu. I would highly recommend checking out the Fuel 5 product. Basically, it's for fast and extended training with 4 carbohydrate sources in Fuel 5 to keep your glycogen levels topped up, helping you maintain performance and delay onset of fatigue. To check that out, you go to xendurance.eu and the code is AgogeTV20 for 20% off. So I say, guys, check that out. Now we're obviously on to, we have our guest. Today's guest is Mr. Carl Paoli. Most people will know Carl from either his book, or the Freestyle Connection, or originally back in CrossFit was the creator of Gymnastics WOD, which I know taught me how to do muscle ups. So
you can do muscle ups?
So, well, I could do muscle ups. I still can is another thing. After lockdown and a few extra puddings, that might be a bit of an issue. Obviously I want to throw it over to Carl. Carl, can I just ask what are you doing in the wonderful world at the minute? I know you've moved away from Gymnastics WOD. So where are you at and what are you up to now?
Yeah, in this very moment, I'm speaking to you guys, which I'm excited about. And yeah, thank you for having me. What I'm currently doing right now is I'm sheltering in place, as they say here in the U.S., which is I'm staying at home for most of the part of my day. I'm currently in Central California, away from where I live, actually in San Francisco, which is Northern California.
Okay.
We came out here just to have more space and have access to a backyard. And we're currently actually staying with our in-laws, my in-laws. And that's another story to talk about on a different day, but I've learned a lot.
Love it.
But life is great. Although it's been a roller coaster of emotions, and it's been a great learning experience though. With not just the pandemic, but now what's happening in the CrossFit scene and the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm all about it, and I'm excited to be a participant and to continue to be a part of the unfolding of it all. So yeah, at the moment I'm talking to you guys and trying to be a responsible member of society.
Cool. Amazing. One thing that actually I wrote it down because I really liked it. I saw on your Instagram recently you posted, not the waves, not the storm, but often we ourselves sink the ship. And I was like, that I thought that was pretty powerful for what's going on in the CrossFit world at the minute. For our listeners, could you elaborate a little bit more on that and tell us a bit more?
Yeah, first and foremost, this was a post I made 48 hours ago, and it was hard to make that post, but I thought it was important for me at this moment to put my feet on the ground where they belonged and to simply express what my stance was, which is that I am not in support of the remarks that Greg Glassman shared over Twitter. And in addition, his association with CrossFit HQ makes it so that I do not want to have a relationship or support that in any way. And I wanted to make that crystal clear. And I share that quote because a lot of times it's not what we consciously believe is creating the outcomes that we're seeing, but it's actually our subconscious way of operating. And in this case, in the case of CrossFit, these remarks that were expressed on Twitter are just the tipping point of a long series of events that have happened over the years. This goes back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
And there's so much we don't see because the ocean is so big and the waves are so crazy that we think it's the storm, but it's something completely different.
Yeah.
And that's why I shared that. And one thing that I have learned over the last 48 hours is that my voice to some degree resonates with a lot of people, whether it's positive or negative. And one of the positives is that I think people are seeing beyond the veil right now. which is they can see further. One of the negatives is that in some ways, the dramatic representation of my image of the CrossFit logo sinking into the ocean, which I created, by the way,
it was pretty cool,
and designed, also instilled some fear in people. It made people uncomfortable, and all of a sudden their livelihood felt like it was put in jeopardy because they were hearing it from a person that they respect and have followed. And I wanted to make sure that I followed up by saying that don't be afraid of a brand sinking or an organization being dismantled or a system changing, because even though you may have built a company or a culture anchored in that, it doesn't mean that that has to be your anchor going forward. It doesn't have to represent the state of your business, but it does have to bring up something uncomfortable in you, which is something that you have to look at, assess, and potentially change. The question is, how are you going to do it? Where are you going to seek out the information? And how can we all be a part of supporting this? In other words, what I'm trying to say is that CrossFit HQ may be in a position where they're currently crumbling and trying to figure it out. Greg Glassman may be on a way out of what he originally created, but the community that has been built around CrossFit, the methodology, is probably stronger than ever. There may look like there's a divide and a crack, but that divide and that crack is shining light onto what we really need to fix. And right now, more than ever, it's time to have that conversation. And I am more than open to having it, and I am willing to take full responsibility of anything that I say and do, and also willing to change my ways. So bring it. This is just part of a new level of evolution and adaptation, and it's an expression of fitness, which is our ability to be able to meet a standard and serve a purpose. The question is, what is the purpose, and how are we going to meet that standard as individuals and collectively?
I love that what you said then about it's, even though obviously all these things happened up at HQ and stuff, it's not divided the community. If anything, it's just sort of like brought people closer, hasn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like all these affiliates that were CrossFit affiliates, they've still come together. Do you know what I mean? And they're like, no, just because obviously something's been said, we're not that, and we're going to basically prove it. So yeah, I agree totally what you said there.
Definitely. And I've just like today, because we de-affiliated, we were up for renewal anyway, and it kind of made the decision, well, okay, this is where we're going. And I've just been on a call with one of the guys, one of the liaisons for the UK. And to be fair, one thing he said, which I really respect, is he actually turned around to us and was like, if you hadn't de-affiliated, this wouldn't be happening. We wouldn't be able to listen to you, talk to people, and find out the problems that are going on. So even at HQ level, which again I've got a lot of respect for, they've said, look, thank you for de-affiliating, because now we're going to be better. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I'm not going to re-affiliate anytime soon, but I respect your stance on it, and I'm glad that you're taking that attitude towards it, as opposed to HQ's old stance, which I think would have been "fuck you." So it's all cool.
That's a great point. And unfortunately, this is exactly what we're facing with the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, which is there's a systemic problem. And if we come out saying right now, like I, as a white man, say I'm not racist because I don't have racist ideologies, I'm actually missing the point. And I bring this up because in my experience, although CrossFit has brought me an amazing career, I have learned wonderful lessons along the way and met people who have made me who I am today. And I can say proudly that I am grateful of all those lessons. It has also been a very toxic environment. It's been almost like an emotionally abusive relationship, and I've got to witness that firsthand with people that I've worked with, and from a distance, seeing people that I love and respected, and have still some respect for at times, as decent human beings, of course, as just like human beings. I mean, to see how toxic their relationship has been with CrossFit. And this is nothing to be ashamed of. This is something that we need to embrace and realize that we all have culpability, and that culpability, whether we are consciously involved with it or unconsciously involved with it, we have to take responsibility of it. Yeah. And I think that's what's being changed right now. We're witnessing a transformation and a healing of a system and a relationship, not just internally at CrossFit HQ, but also with the affiliates and the extended fitness community, which are still part of CrossFit.
Yeah, definitely. And couldn't agree more. Actually, obviously, you've learned a lot from a lot of people in CrossFit, so I just want to sort of take you back over to where it, because I think you had a really cool start in CrossFit, where it all begun for you. Is it CrossFit San Francisco?
Yep,
yeah.
San Francisco CrossFit, which as of yesterday is San Francisco Fit. They also de-affiliated. I parted ways with San Francisco CrossFit back then in 2016. August 9th specifically. And that was actually a very similar happening to what we're experiencing right now. So it was a very unfortunate separation and very painful. Yeah. But yeah, in 2008, I joined San Francisco CrossFit, and I was a member there. And the owner and founder, Kelly Starrett, became my mentor, and eventually I started working there part-time, and ended up collaborating with Kelly and Kelly Starrett, this is, in San Francisco CrossFit, and then eventually venturing out to do my own thing, which was Gymnastics WOD at first, which was a website dedicated to teaching gymnastics applied to CrossFit. And all of this always done as a resource that was outside of the CrossFit sphere. I was offered several opportunities to work with HQ, and I always said no until 2014, which is when I accepted a position as part of the board of the CrossFit trainer certification in writing the test for the CrossFit level 3. I accepted that position, and I was on that board for a few years. But that's the only official relationship I've had, and that's where it kind of all started, and it segued into where I am today, which is through Freestyle, which is the book that I wrote, and doing more of the lifestyle coaching, which I call lifestyle design.
Yeah.
So before that, you had a career in gymnastics, didn't you? Is that where it all sort of began?
Yeah. I grew up doing gymnastics in Spain, competed there on the national Spanish circuit. And when I retired from gymnastics in the year 2000, I got into action sports. And when I moved to the US in 2004, I started getting involved in doing strength and conditioning for action sports athletes. And then that led to getting into the fitness scene, becoming a personal trainer, finding CrossFit, and then landing where I am today, basically.
Cool. Well, awesome. I love it. It's a pretty roller coaster adventure. I would like to, obviously, so you first come to my attention when I first started CrossFit because of Gymnastics WOD. And obviously, like I say, I still use some of the drills and skills that I learned from that to coach athletes today. Because it was the go-to source for basically improving your gymnastics. There was nobody else really doing it at the time. And certainly not communicating it as well as you were. And so your style of communication being really important, what sort of got you to be so, I don't know what the right word is, but so effective at getting your point across on a video to so many people? Like I say, just making it so easy to understand. The
videos are very like not simple, but they're very direct and to the point.
And did you learn that, or was that just something that come naturally to you?
Well, I definitely learned it over the years, which is that I'm a place of fear, actually. Right. And I tell you this because when I was a kid, I was scared of everything. Right. And I was very sensitive to loud noises, large crowds, fear of pain, just fear of being alive. And thanks to my mother and my family, I was able to process this fear. And behind the fear, what there was this craving, this desire for understanding, for being connected to something that was greater than myself, and realizing that I was part of something bigger than myself, and that that being alive was perfectly safe. And being alive required one to be able to live in a place where there was a beginning and an end, but an ever unfolding of self. And this, although it may sound kooky to some people, is the foundation of everything that I've done up until this point. And when I was probably 12, 13, I realized that I didn't have the ability to communicate the truth that was inside of me. And the only place I could do that was through my physical practice, which was gymnastics. Yeah. And in my physical practice, I met so much resistance in my mindset, in my physical approach to gymnastics and training, to my environment. And I lived in this constant state of dissatisfaction and frustration. And although I achieved certain things in gymnastics, I always felt limited in what I was expressing and saying. And when I came to the US in 2004 and I started coaching, I realized that the work that I had to do first was in learning how to translate what was inside of me so I could present it outside. And the best way to do that was by describing my behaviors. In other words, if I was teaching someone how to do a push-up, this is a very simple example, I would say, as I did the push-up, I would simply describe it. I place my hands flat on the ground. I lock my elbows out and I push away. As I'm pushing away, I'm thinking about this. And then I begin my descent by bending the elbow and sending the shoulder, whatever it is, right? Yeah. I just simply describe. I learned how to describe my behavior so well that I didn't have to move in order to communicate it anymore. I could just sit still and communicate in words an exact description. And it wasn't just my behavior, but it was also other people's behaviors. And then I was also able to relate that to an outcome. So I could express contextually a movement pattern in this moment, which is in a constant state of adaptation, with the anchor in the goal. And that, once I started expressing it in videos, in the context of CrossFit, with the language of movement, boom, things start to explode. And that was a very empowering moment for me, because everything that I had been scared of, everything that I had put myself down for, and everything that I thought I wasn't, all of a sudden was telling me, yes, you are. And yes, you can, and keep going, because this is being of assistance and helpful and of service. And this is the essence of being human. And this is what you need to continue to fight for until the end of your days. And that's what I've committed to. And what's happened, and I'm going kind of ranting now, is that the evolution of a practice, the evolution of our planet, the evolution of us as conscious human beings, in the last 20 years, as we have been in the information era and communications era, has evolved so quickly that I've been faced with having to make very quick pivots, and these pivots have always been rooted in my commitment to continuing to develop, to continuing to expand my consciousness, with the intention of assisting as many people as I can in doing the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. And I think that brings us nicely onto sort of where we're at now. If you do, and again, so I'd probably refer to it as lifestyle coaching with lifestyle design, which is a probably much better word for it. And you started doing that in a couple of years ago now, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I started doing that in 2018 officially. And even though I started in 2018, I haven't fully committed to it because I am still leaning towards my own development at the moment.
Yeah.
But the one thing that has become clear is that I work on myself as an offering to others, and I work with others as a way of working on myself.
Yeah.
In other ways, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure that I always remain a student, and that when I have moments of clarity, when I have the ability and bandwidth, that I share through my craft or what I've learned in a way that can assist others in doing the same, and at the same time allowing me to continue to unfold. And this has been kind of the root of it. And now it's being presented in I do one-on-one coaching. I have been contracted by organizations to help them with what we would call team development or brand development or business development, more so in the articulation of it and application to a vision and execution. And I'm also doing it through mediation of conversation, which happens through what I call Carl's Coffee Club,
Yeah.
which is kind of just a gathering of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love it. I love it that it's just, it all seems very natural. It's sort of like it's all come very, like I say, very naturally over the past few years and developed into something. And you've always kind of, I want to say come out on top, but you've always kind of found a way to get a good message across to people, whether it's through gymnastics, and teaching people about movement, or again, like now teaching people about brand design and how to, like say, to communicate effectively, which is pretty awesome.
Something I'd quickly like to come back to, Carl, and obviously bring it back to training. I remember watching a video a while ago, and I'm pretty sure it was a video of yourself breaking down the burpee. And obviously, everybody hates burpees. I'm sure our members will agree with me there. And you had like a very interesting way of talking about it. And I think you were talking about like rotational elements, and then you compared it to like a backflip or something. I mean, I might be paraphrasing there, but was it something along those lines?
Yeah, that was the video that created a nice divide in the people I was speaking with. Some people said,
Sorry.
this guy is a genius, or he's a complete idiot.
You know that bus we were talking about before? Sorry.
No, that's awesome. But that video, what my goal was with that video was to try to share the principles of skill transfer, which are the principles that I believe we all have to study, that allow us to, for one, express who we are in this very moment, or express a movement pattern, say a burpee, a muscle up, a handstand, push up, running, jumping, landing, throwing, catching, whatever it may be, express it. Yeah. Experiment with it, meaning stress test it, put it under different conditions and see what comes out of it. This could be like taking a burpee and say, do 10 burpees as fast as you can, or do 10 burpees with a weight vest on, do 10 burpees with a run before and a run after. And stress testing something, experimenting with it until it becomes what Nassim Taleb would call anti-fragile, which is an expression of a current state of adaptation that when you stress it more, it just becomes more robust and continues to grow. And through the experimentation, being able to see what elements of the practice, expression, and experimentation shall we integrate. In other words, this is what defines a methodology or a practice. And then once having a methodology and a practice, having a body of work that when it exists, allows one to transcend. The transcendence is the skill transfer itself. So in other words, what I was trying to say is that whatever you choose to express or do, say it is a burpee, within the burpee, you can find the values and principles required, not only for you to become physically fit, but also mentally and emotionally fit, and translate all of those aspects as a base of performance into anything else that you do. Let's see movement from that perspective. And if we can do that, what do you think is going to happen when we start to add more complexity? We add more variety, we add more diversity. And this is exactly what we're trying to celebrate right now. And I want to hit this point home, is that the planet, our society, is asking for diversity and seeing this inclusivity and celebrating that and speaking up for the pieces that we say, like, for example, I don't like burpees. No, that's just an idea you have in your head because you haven't seen the value. You haven't learned to love. You haven't decided that you want to change the system. And this is what I am so fired up about right now more than ever, because it goes back to that video, that burpee video. That's what I was trying to communicate. And that's why we saw a divide, because people could resonate with it and said, oh yeah, I feel that in my heart. Or they thought, this guy's an idiot because he's just talking about something that doesn't make any sense or compute in my head at this moment in that context.
I love that you've explained that as well, because this isn't meant to be disrespectful. I got burpee coaching from it, and it was like, I've used that with like clients and members, and it was brilliant. But having you explain that to me now, I can understand why there is so much more to it, which is amazing.
That's cool. And I'm so glad. I mean, here's the thing is we take what we can from everything that is happening around us. And all I'm asking and doing is trying to encourage people to take a look, just take a look behind the curtain and see what's there. It's scary. I'm telling you, it's scary. I was paralyzed as a kid. I've been paralyzed. My jaw has been clenched for 2 weeks because I've been scared of seeing the next layer of who I truly am. And through fitness, we can actually reveal that. And right now, the whole planet is asking for us to look behind the veil and see what's there. And although it's scary, there is love, there is growth, there is a new way of seeing the world. And it's exciting when you can see it that way, and it allows you to create separation from the pain.
Yeah, definitely.
I like it. I think like you say, anything that people are passionate about, if you really look down into it, it can help them with any other form of their life. Like, we're passionate about fitness, so it's easy for us to relate it to fitness. But if I'm like, so we relate that being burpees, like looking at burpees, and you can say like, okay, that's going to make me better at other areas of my life. I think what people are finding hard at the moment is they're so passionate about something, they've not really dug down and found the deeper layers of why that's important to them. And again, I think that's just resulting in a bit more conflict than people would like to see. Like, do you think that? I don't know how to word this. Do you think that with a bit more self-reflection and direction, people can just grow and it's gonna come into something much more positive than maybe? And I know there's a lot of positivity out there at the minute, but there's also a lot of arguing and negativity. So, do you think that it will result in positivity long term?
Yeah, I think there will be a positive impact. I have two things I kind of would like to share. One, I'm going to share a story, and then two, I want to share my take on fitness. A personal story has been through the Black Lives Matter movement as the uprising has started to happen through social media, on the streets, through manifestations and protests, and these marches. People have gained a little bit more of awareness. And I am a parent, or one of the fathers, to a child who happens to be Black. Well, she's not a child anymore. She's 21. So I'm a parent to a person of color. And for the first time in my 7 years of parenthood to this person, friends have reached out and said, hey, how are you doing with all this? And my first reaction was, yeah, my kid didn't just become Black. She's been Black for 7 years. So what is happening? And what we noticed, and when I say we, is my wife and I, we noticed that people through this time of quarantine lockdown have had some more time to self-reflect and to think about the world a little bit different, and thus have been able to relate to what's happening at a more emotional level. It's become more personal. And this is a state that we're currently in. We're currently in a state where there is a little bit more awareness and through the self-reflection that has occurred due to the pandemic. That's one side of things. The other side of things is that fitness is not just how CrossFit defined it as increased work capacity across broad time role domains. It's not just how you biologically define it, which is in our ability to procreate or pass on our genes. Fitness is the ability to carry out a purpose. And the question we must ask ourselves right now, whether it's in our physical practice, in our mental practice, in our political, economical, societal practice, is what is the purpose? Moreover, what is my purpose or role that I play in this situation? And to do that work, and that work is the work of self-reflection. If we can do that in a way where we're not scared to, once again, express, experiment, integrate, and transcend, we will have a positive outcome.
Good answer.
Excellent. Love it. Brilliant answer. Again, like I think that the analogy you use just like that, it sums up the current situation so well. And like I appreciate that you actually can speak so openly about it, because I know at the minute one of the hardest things is not knowing what to say, and obviously I feel like you're communicating it so well that like it'll help. I think it will actually help a lot of our listeners understand sort of the climate and the way and the way that maybe they're feeling about things at the moment, and look into themselves a little bit more deeply. I actually forgot about this until you mentioned it. Then you adopted, didn't you? Which was and you and your wife decided to adopt. Was she a teenager at the time? I think I've heard this on another podcast.
Yeah, she was a teenager.
Yeah, please correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, nobody wants to adopt a teenager. I don't mean that in the wrong way, but like that was an unusual decision to make. So how did that come about? I think that'd be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, our daughter's name is Tanai. Tanai was part of the gymnastics team that my wife coached. She had been bouncing around from home to home and ended up in a group home at the time that she was being coached by my wife. And my wife became her mentor outside of the gym, and eventually got more involved in her foster care process and the system. And then one day she decided to start hosting her at home for dinners, and eventually we went through the foster care training that allows you to do what's called respite, which is having the kid for 24 hours at your home, so she could do a sleepover. And as she started spending nights at our home, we realized that maybe we can offer her to live here, and we had an extra room and an extra bathroom, and she could have her own space, and maybe this is something that we could contribute to her life in some way. So we asked her, would you be interested in moving in with us and for us to become your foster parents? And she said yes. And she was 16 at the time, and once she moved in, it became clear that the system itself was, although helpful, toxic and needed to be expanded upon and changed. And in order for us to participate in that, we saw that it was maybe important to take full responsibility of our roles as foster parents, and to give her the the space and empowerment and courage to make a decision on moving forward into adulthood as a fully independent individual in this society. Now, this is way more complex than I'm explaining it here, but we decided to adopt. We adopted her at the age of 17. She is currently 21, about to turn 22. And here we are, parents to a 20-year-old girl who has been one of the greatest gifts we've ever received. And now more than ever at this time is shedding light on the importance of trying to practice unconditional love, creating new ways of supporting us as individuals in growing and expanding, and doing this in a way that we can celebrate diversity and inclusivity and equality, and doing it together without the fear of just because certain people are highlighted at certain times that this doesn't mean that there's a balance or a calibration, so to speak, over time that occurs. And it's fascinating because at this moment, all of this, although it's been clear now that I look at it in retrospect, it still brings me a great sense of confusion. But that confusion is just making me be even more introspective and giving me even more courage to speak out.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of how that happened. And
I'm not gonna lie, when we got you on the podcast, I didn't realize how perfect a person you were to speak on the matter at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think like you've got sort of very unique perspective of it from where you are, and you can speak to what's going on so much more eloquently and with more understanding than most people. I think
it also goes back to how well you are at communicating things in general. So, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I just want to say that I am guilty. My ego allowed me to believe that I had done the work in some ways and that I was ahead. And the last 2 weeks have just proven that you can never be satisfied. You never arrive. You need to continue to just dig deeper. And this is just me now having the courage to, one, say I'm part of the problem, and two, I'm ready to do the work, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And I'm going to express myself however I can in a way that maybe people don't understand the words that I'm saying because I don't even understand them, but maybe they resonate, maybe they ring true in your heart. And if so, maybe that will eventually bubble up into our brain in a way that it crystallizes. And with a cold mind, we can say, this is the next action. These are the best decisions. This is how we're going to move forward, and this is why.
Amazing. I love it. I think that's probably I want to move on to like the quick fire questions after that, because I think that's just the perfect thing to sort of end the main part of the podcast on, as opposed to trying to I defo could ask you questions all day, but like I say, I think that's the best part to leave it on, because it's gonna it'll resonate with some people for sure.
Sounds good.
So we've got some quick fire questions for you. Say the quick fire again. Feel free to elaborate, but and they're just usual stuff, recommendations, that kind of thing. So basically, first things first, and other than freestyle, we'll promote that.
We've already got that one.
Yeah, I've already bought that book. So other than freestyle, what book would you recommend that everybody needs to read?
I would recommend a book that you find interesting in the subject matter that's presented. That's it. Me coming out here to say, read this book, I've realized that that's my personal bias. And what I'm here to do is encourage people to find a book that resonates with them. And that's all I can say. I mean, there's so many books out there that are wonderful. One that has made a big impact in my life, it's so simple, but it's called Drive by Daniel H. Pink. It's a great little book, quick read, very easy to understand.
Finished reading this one.
Oh, nice. There you go.
And it is Amazing. And Phil won't read it, right? But now that you said it, Carl, I can promise you he's going to go and buy it.
Yeah, probably.
And I can understand, having like obviously spoken to you now, why you love that book so much. Because it's a very, very powerful book. It's good.
Yeah, I quote it in freestyle as well.
Awesome.
Right.
Me and Josh have this really good relationship where we both tell each other something, and like then 12 months later the other one goes away and does it and tells, or somebody else tells us to do it, and we go, oh yeah, that was really good. So we've had that relationship since day one. So
it's just how it works.
Yeah.
That's like my wife when she attended my seminar for the first time. She's like, you realize that this is everything that I told you. And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that's right.
You've done the work
I even
for
use
me.
her jokes. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So if there was one person that you could sit down and just basically learn from or have a conversation with, who would it be?
Dead or alive?
It's up to you.
Either.
Both, if you want.
At this very moment, for some reason, Gandhi is coming up. Nelson Mandela is coming up for me. Yeah, these are people that I wish I could have just sat there and listened.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Excellent. Great answer. Now, obviously, you spent a lot of time in gyms, and just for a bit of comedy value to it. What's your biggest dick gym move? So what is it that somebody does in the gym and you're like, oh, why would you do that? Like mine's chalking up your hands for press ups because it just makes a mess of my floor and annoys me. So what's the one thing that really gets to you?
Yeah, mine is when I see people during a workout put on knee sleeves, a weight belt, and some Olympic weightlifting shoes to do, something like Fran or whatever. I just think it's kind of funny and indicative of how influenced we are by looks, aesthetics, and the toys. So that's just one of those things that makes me kind of chuckle. And the reason it makes me chuckle is because I wanted to do that when I first started doing CrossFit too.
Yeah. Agreed. I love it.
I remember when I got
cool.
my first pair of knee sleeves and I didn't know anything about them, and I put them on and I tried them out doing power cleans.
Like, as you do.
Just because I'd seen someone in knee sleeves. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be cool.
Yeah.
You got some sweaty knees. That's what you got. Sweaty knee pits.
Yeah. Excellent.
Funny.
Awesome. Right. Okay. So last ones, and again, these are like literally quick fire, and it's just this or that. All CrossFit or gym related. So we'll throw them at you. What would you prefer, snatch or clean and jerk?
Snatch.
Snatch. Running or rowing?
Running.
Front squat or back squat?
Back squat.
Pizza or ice cream?
Ice cream.
Cookies or donuts?
Cookies.
Books or movies?
Movies.
Olympic gold medal or £1 million?
Ooh. £1 million at this moment.
Oh, okay, nice. It took a lot of thought, that one. I like it. It was like that usually trips people.
I think that question right there is great because it represents the essence of living in duality, but having to choose. And this is my big take, is that at this moment, the mentality that if you choose, you lose has to go away. We have this fear that if we say yes to one thing, we're saying no to everything else. But in reality, if you choose, you win. Meaning that if you choose one thing, you're not saying no to all these other things. You're just saying, this is where I stand. This is what I'm going to do. And when I go down this rabbit hole, I will cover all the other ones as well.
Yeah.
But just for the record, you've had the £1 million. You're not allowed a gold medal.
We did miss one off because we normally ask the UK people football or CrossFit, or soccer or CrossFit. So
I would choose CrossFit.
Yeah, cool. Just to confirm, we normally finish on the £1 million question. To be fair, but
Very cool.
Just thought I'd confirm that for the listeners. Okay, Carl, thank you very much for your time. Again, I want to be super respectful of your time because we're all going stir crazy and lockdown and all the rest of it. But first things first, how do people find you? Where do people get in touch with you if they want to know more about you?
Yeah, on social media, at Carl Paoli, anywhere on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I'm there. You can find me. And as I always say, if you want to get in touch, you just have to look me up. I try to do my best at responding to everybody who reaches out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where you can find me. And thank you for having me. I mean, thank you for letting me share so candidly. I appreciate it.
No, you're very welcome. It's been amazing to have you on. Thank you for coming on.
We appreciate you being so honest and upfront about it as well. It was awesome, and refreshing, which is awesome. The other thing is, I was going to say, I always remember being really excited when Carl Paoli messaged me back for a video that I did doing a straight muscle up, and I remember me and him being in the gym going, we were both like, oh my god, Carl Paoli's like messaging me back, like what's going on? So
and there you go. That, like you said, you get back to everybody, which is brilliant.
And like I say, just again shows such a good person. So again, thank you very much for joining us. For everybody listening, thanks for listening. And obviously, if you enjoyed this episode, please go and check out some of our previous episodes. Like, share, comment on Facebook, give us a 5-star review where possible. And don't forget, if you after some supplements, then you can check out xendurance.eu and use the code AgogeTV20 to get yourself 20% off. Again, thanks very much, guys. Peace.